Hey guys, Kier Frisbee here, and if you don't already know who I am, I'm an investigative producer in Atlanta, Georgia. I get it. Before we talk about the news or my next piece that my team and I are coming out with, I've got to explain this really snazzy robe that I've got going on. There's a reality. This is what my nights and weekends usually look like. After really long days and weeks of digging through documents and chasing stories and team planning and hitting all of our deadlines, the only thing that I want to do is be comfortable. My robe is usually the very first thing that I put on as soon as I get home. But that doesn't mean that I'm not checking out what's going on outside, and let's just say there is a lot going on outside. So I had this crazy idea. What if we talked about the news in a way that was less broadcast style and more like a conversation with a friend? That brings us here. Hopefully you're relaxing too. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's talk about some of the biggest Georgia and Atlanta headlines that really caught my attention this week. First up, a story that made me do a double take. A recent study by Georgia State University found that 55% of Atlanta's restrooms were inaccessible, including those that were broken, locked, or limited to customers. All right, so researchers visited 262 locations during normal business hours in different parts of Atlanta, which included transit hubs, neighborhoods, and tourist attractions. According to April Ballard, assistant professor at Georgia State University's School of Public Health, it costs about $10,000 a month to clean sidewalks downtown from public urination and public defecation. 11 Live's Joe Ripley has more on this story, including the city of Atlanta's response on 11live.com. Next, a story that absolutely rocked our communities and our newsroom. Colt Gray, the gunman in the 2024 Appalachia High shooting that killed 2 students and 2 teachers, pled guilty in court on Friday, July 24th. A non-negotiated plea was entered with a sentencing proceeding now underway. No deal offer was on the table from prosecutors, and the courtroom was full of families and loved ones affected by the shooting. Now, I will say this, I was personally keeping a close eye during our live stream, and I can say with confidence it was extremely hard to watch. Now, time for a topic I'm really passionate about as somebody who has worked on many projects focused on families and victims impacted by trauma. Behind every cold case, missing person, unanswered question, there's a family or a loved one still waiting for answers. This week's case, 29-year-old Bridget Lockhart, boyfriend of a woman who was found dead in her home in 1999, was charged with murder in connection to the decades-old homicide case just weeks after Atlanta Police Department asked for the public's help in locating the suspect. An autopsy was completed in 1999, but those results were never communicated to Atlanta Police Department's homicide unit, leaving the case unresolved until now. All right, but get this, and this is what's crazy about this situation. Nearly 30 years later, it was Lockhart's daughter, who is now an officer with DeKalb County Police Department, who contacted APD requesting information on the case. The suspect waived his court appearance on Tuesday, July 14th, and he's expected to return to court on August 5th. When we asked why it took this long, here's what police had to say.
It took 27 years.
It was 27 years ago, like you said. It was really, we had to reach back out to the medical examiner and Miss Loyal. Not everything back then is as it is today as far as technology goes. Our reports were back on paper then. So it appears there might have been a little miscommunication. But we were able to work through that and overcome any kind of hurdles to bring justice to this family.
You know why the autopsy results were not submitted to APD for decades, and then why the rape kit was only submitted to GBI this year?
That's something we're still working through. We've been in contact with the medical examiner's office, and we do have a great relationship with them. They're a great partner for us. They still collect our evidence. So it's something we're working through and trying to communicate, but, I can assure you we do have a robust relationship with them these days. So whatever happened 27 years ago, we are in constant contact with the medical examiner going forward with anything that occurs.
I can say this with full confidence. This case has now sparked deep interest within our unit and newsroom, and we will continue to follow what happens next. All right, so we've covered some pretty heavy things, so let's end on something good. Because even with all the tough stories happening around us, there's still people doing some pretty amazing and incredible things. This week's good news story is by Caitlin Ross, who I absolutely love and adore.
A mom hopes the parents of these teenagers see this, and I hope they do too. It happened during Cow Appreciation Day at the Chick-fil-A in Locust Grove. A 3-year-old boy showed up wearing his very best cow outfit, excited to be part of the fun. This group of teenagers noticed him. They could have smiled and kept walking. Instead, they stopped to talk to him, asked if they could take a picture with him, laughed with him, and made him feel like he was the coolest kid in the restaurant. His mom, Jessica, said her son's face just lit up. Then as they were leaving, one of the teenagers gave her a hug and said, "Thanks, Mama." She says that moment melted her heart. Not because they did something extraordinary, but because they chose kindness when no one was asking them to. Jessica told me she was blown away by how many people connected with this story after she shared it. It reminded so many people that there are incredible teenagers out there doing the right thing every single day. So to the parents who raise these young men, you should be proud. You raised sons who took a few minutes out of their day to make a little boy feel so important and celebrated. The world talks way too much about teenagers doing the wrong thing. Here is a reminder that there are a whole lot of them doing what's right.
I love ending with stories like this because they remind us that behind the headlines, there's still people showing up for each other and doing some good. And that concludes the first edition of the Robe Report, the stories you probably missed, the questions still worth asking, and the things that I think that you should probably know about.